Hello! In the last video we had a go at building a DIY sound sampler featured in an issue of CU Amiga magazine. Back in 1993 when I attempted that and I couldn't get it to work, I ended up purchasing a commercial one, and I ended up with the MacLeod sound sampling cartridge. In this video we're going to take a look at 4 different 8-bit sound sampling cartridges from back in the day, try them out and see if any of them were noticeably better quality than the others. They weren't all released at exactly the same time, but they are all budget friendly 8-bit sound samplers. After we've tried them, we'll take them apart and see how they work. This video is sponsored by PCBWay, more on that later. So let's take a look at the sound samplers I've got, and 2 of them even have their own boxes still. We'll start with probably the best known, the Techno Sound Turbo, and it comes in a nice box. This is the original version. Opening it up we find the sound sampling cartridge, a floppy disk with the software on it. We also find a cable with, well, I doubt this adapter came with it, interesting. Also we find an advert for the Sound Enhancer, an interesting product that we may look at in a future video. Under that is the user manual. It's fairly basic looking, but a quick glance through shows it's fairly comprehensive. Finally, at the bottom of the box is a receipt from the person that purchased this, and in 1992 it cost them $29.99, a bargain. The second sampler we'll be looking at is the MicroDeal Master Sound. Unfortunately I don't have the box that came in, but as you can see it's a little larger than the Techno Sound Turbo. I wonder if that's just wasted space or the internals need all that space. The box actually looked like this. Interesting that it shows a CD on the box when this is an 8-bit sampler and CDs are 16-bit. It looks like it came out in 1990, so slightly older than the Techno Sound Turbo. I do know however that inside the box was a single disc, a simple postcard sized warranty card, and the manual, and I have several scans of the manual that I'm now showing you, and all of these seem to be of a similar quality to that of the Techno Sound Turbo. Looking at one random magazine advert that I can see that when this article was published it retailed for $39.95. Next we'll have a look at the MacLeod sound cartridge, also made by MicroDeal, and this is missing the rather cool sleeve that the box should be wrapped in, but not to worry, it looks the same as the cover of the manual. The sound sampler cartridge is by far the smallest so far, and this one has a little volume control too. The disc suggests that they produced versions for the Atari ST and PC, although I don't know if that was actually ever true. The manual however is by far the most professionally produced one so far. It's actually quite thick and very comprehensive. On presentation alone this one looks way more impressive than the others. Finally, there's a registration card in the box. Now I know from my history that when we purchased this it was around £50, but it may have been cheaper elsewhere. Finally, the last sampler we're going to look at is the Trilogic Stereo Sampler, MK2. And like the Master Sound, I don't actually have the box for this. This one's a little strange, it has a connector block on the front, which I believe is some kind of parallel port pass-through. It also has a volume control. I do have a photo of the box that the mono version came in, as they produced 2 versions. I've also got these 2 clippings showing the sampler with its parallel port pass-through, and showing the price was roughly £39. Weirdly, as standard, the first version of this sampler didn't come with any software. This version however should have come with something fairly basic. Now all of these connect via the parallel port, so you wouldn't imagine them being vastly different. I was going to show you the specs of them each side by side, but it's hard to get consistent information, especially when the maximum sampling frequency is often constrained by the speed of the machine using it. I would also have liked to have tried the GVP DSS 8 Plus, but I couldn't find one. So instead, let's jump straight in and have a look at the software that came with each. Now I'm not too concerned with the features of each package, this is just more of an overview. So you can see I have the MicroDeal Master Sound connected to my Amiga 500 Plus, and I'm booting into its software. The software is dated from 1989, so I'm expecting this to have less features than the other software. Once in, and after skipping the splash screen, I hit the monitor button and I can hear what the sampler is listening to. I can also change the recording frequency, although this doesn't seem to make any difference to the preview. There's also some buttons for VU meter and spectrum analysis, which is quite cool. Recording is easy, simply hit the record button. The display at the top isn't very interactive, and to be honest I found this software quite unintuitive, but it does do the job. As this sampler will be compatible with other software, I guess there's no real need for much more. Now, what I'm booting here is the later version of the Techno Sound Turbo. The cartridge I have here wouldn't have come with that, but I wanted to see their latest offering and what it was like. Firstly, it boots into a nice splash screen, and then eventually the main software starts. It's quite a nice looking display and certainly more feature packed than the Master Sound software. I like the fact that the oscilloscope runs in the middle all the time, along with the UV meters. Great for setting up the audio input. As you'd expect, it can monitor and record, and offers better editing too, with more mouse control, and has a variety of effects built in. It's also nice how you can use a small number of these effects in real time, which is a lot of fun. It certainly is a lot nicer to use than the Master Sound offering, but it's significantly newer, although I did get it to crash once or twice. Moving on to the Megalo Sound, Microdeal's later sound sampler, and this one is the one I'm most familiar with. It boots to Workbench so you can load the software manually. Now the observant ones among you may notice this megalodata.abk file. Well, that's compressed with Amos's compiler, using its squash command. And it contains a variety of assembly language routines and graphics, some of which I've extracted here. Now don't let the fact that it's Amos put you off, because this program is very polished with a wide variety of options, and it also attempts to give you a Workbench feel to the user interface as well. I'm going to press the monitor button so we can check that it's all working, then I'll record in stereo. And it seems to work okay. What's really good is the editing features. It's very interactive and has a wide range of effects. Best of all, I had a lot of fun with these as you can apply them in real time, live, and there's a lot of different effects you can play with. You can tell a lot of work has gone into this application, given all the user configurable options and preference settings. It certainly is quite the comprehensive package. Obviously I couldn't test the software from Trilogic because there wasn't any, at least there wasn't with the earlier iterations, and I couldn't find the software they released later on either. I might be biased, but I'm trying all of these out and I find, to be honest, the Megalo Sound seems to be the most featureful and the easiest to use. However, if you're recording in mono, then all of these samplers are pretty much interchangeable software-wise anyway. In stereo, however, you get mixed results, sometimes both channels becoming selected and sometimes neither. I guess we'll discover how that works later on. For now though, I want to compare the quality of their recordings. And I'm going to throw my sound sampler in from the last video, because I discovered that weird noise that it was making wasn't actually there, and it was actually a result of the monitor function being used on the software. To test these, I'm going to play various different sounds and sample them in mono at the same sample rate. I'll adjust the input volume so they all record at the same level, to get them as loud as possible without any distortion, so they all record consistently with each other. Then, I'll bring the recordings over to the PC for analysis. I'll be using the Megalo Sound software for this, because in its high speed mode it can actually sample at 70 kHz, way beyond the others. The tests I'm planning are as follows. First, silence. I'll short the input so no sound is going in and see how noisy they are when they're silent. Next, a 1 kHz sine wave. This will allow us to see if the sampler can record consistently and smoothly. Third, I'll play a sound that has a 19 kHz and a 20 kHz sound mixed together. This is attempting to look and see if there's any intermodulation distortion, i.e. if the two frequencies interact with each other and produce other harmonics at around 1 kHz. Next, I'll play 16 tones at once, each at a specific frequency. This allows us to see how well those frequencies separate and not interfere with each other. Finally, I'll play a sine wave that starts at 20 Hz and ramps right up to 20 kHz. This will allow us to see the frequency response from the sampler. But before I start these tests, I just want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters, and I thank you so much for your support. And if you'd like to support me in making these videos, then check out the links in the video description. And with all that said, let's start the testing. So now I have a whole bunch of sound files. The silent tests, unfortunately, they all failed because the samplers were so quiet when shorted that the software refused to start recording. Also, I just couldn't get the Trilogic sound sampler to work. I've no idea if it's broken or if I'm doing something wrong, and I can't find any documentation for it either. But we'll pull it apart later on anyway. Right, let's get on with the analysis, and I'm using a free Windows tool called REW, or Room EQ Wizard. Now, I'm not that familiar with this tool, but it's very comprehensive and does way more than I need, so let's have a look at some of the results. First, we'll look at the results for the 1 kHz sine wave test. I've squeezed them all onto the screen at the same time. The important numbers are the signal to noise ratio, or SNR, the total harmonic distortion, or THD, and the effective number of bits, or ENOB, which gives us a good idea of how much of the signal recorded is actually above the noise floor. And the winner of this round is MacLeod sound. It has the lowest noise and the lowest distortion. Next, we'll have a look at the two-tone test. This one is looking for aliasing in the recording. So, with the two frequencies being at 19 kHz and 20 kHz, if we see a signal at around 1 kHz and even multiples of that, or harmonics, then that's a bad sign. Again, we'll look at the effective number of bits and draw an overall conclusion. And this time the winner is the CU Amiga sound sampler. Amazing! For the third test, we fed in a spectrum of 16 different tones. This test tells us how well the samplers can handle multiple frequencies at once. It will show us if there's any extra harmonic distortions created. Plus, we can look once again at the noise level and see if there are any unexpected peaks. In an ideal situation, all 16 peaks would be exactly the same height. So this time the winner is the Techno Sound Turbo, which means so far for each test we've had a different sampler come in at the top. Finally, the frequency sweep from 20Hz right up to 20 kHz. This gives us the actual frequency response of the sampler and allows us to see the noise versus frequency, as well as if there's a point where high frequencies start to disappear. So let's have a look at these results. And the Techno Sound Turbo wins again, being right at the top. So overall, which one is best? Well, here's the overall ranking based on distortion, intermodulation distortion, frequency sweep, and most accurate response. And well, yes, it is a little bit subjective. MacLeod sound comes out at the top, but then it probably is the newest out of all of the four. But what's making Techno Sound Turbo come out at the bottom? Well, I don't know if I've got a faulty one, but these show the recorded waveform for each sampler, massively zoomed in and fed in with the 1 kHz sine wave. Notice here, the distortion on the Techno Sound Turbo. It only happens at this specific amplitude, which is too high to show up on some of the other test results. I had a play with this and it's always present at this precise volume level. The audio input isn't too loud or clipping, so I don't really know what's causing this. If anyone out there has a Techno Sound Turbo, I'd be interested to see if yours exhibits this behaviour as well. So we've played with the hardware and tested it out. It's now time to pull them apart and see what makes them different from each other. I've also reverse engineered each one to obtain their schematics, and yes, that did take quite a while. We'll also have a look inside that Trilogic sound sampler too and see if we can work out why it doesn't work. But before we start, if you have schematics like these, then it's easy to make your own PCBs, and a good place to get those made is our video sponsor, PCBWay. Not only do they offer a wide range of PCB manufacturing options, they also provide an assembly service too, which takes the hassle and the difficulty out of surface mount soldering. If your new creation requires a case, then you can also use their 3D printing service, which allows you to print much larger designs than most domestic printers, to a very professional quality. If you're looking for your own project to build, you should check out their shared projects library, which has literally thousands of projects ready for you to click and order. And if I search for the word Amiga, then there's over 400 different projects that appear, ranging from all sorts of different things. I bet you could probably even find a sound sampler in there too. So, make sure to check out PCBWay, and if you sign up today, you'll get a $5 coupon off your first order. So check out the link in the video description. Thank you PCBWay for sponsoring this video. So, let's start with the Master Sound sound sampling cartridge. You'll see why I'm laughing when I open up the case. Aside from finding out this is actually a mono sampler, look at all that wasted space inside. I wonder why they made it so big. Anyway, a close-up of the little tiny PCB reveals, well, not much. The majority of the work is carried out by the AD7576 analog to digital converter, a very common one for the era. There's also 2 transistors and a few other components. And by reverse engineering it, we end up with this schematic for it. This transistor here is used to invert the strobe signal from the Amiga to trigger the conversion. There's an interesting arrangement of components here, which partly centres the incoming audio around the reference voltage, but I suspect it also might be providing some kind of filter as well, but I'm not entirely sure. Moving on, we'll look at the MacLeod sound cartridge. Once again, it's quite simple and shares the same analog to digital chip as the Master Sound. Probably not a surprise given they're both made by Microdeal. However, this time there's an extra chip. This is the TC4066, and it contains 4 bidirectional analog switches, perfect for switching audio. By looking at the schematic for this, You can see it's a lot like the previous one, but there's an extra chunk at the top for switching between the left and the right channel. This is done very fast so that you end up with tiny little samples from each of the channels, giving you your stereo recording. Also, this time they're using one of the switches to provide that inverted strobe signal to start the conversion process. Sneaky. Next up, the Trilogic sound sampler, and well, I'm not sure if I can fix it or understand why it doesn't work, but at least we'll have a look inside. However, they've tried to make this a little more tricky, because they've been busy bees and scratched off all the chip part numbers. How rude. Also note this rather bodgy looking resistor on the back. But that doesn't stop me. Given the configuration of this, I suspect this chip here is the same analog switch used before in the MacLeod sound sampler. This chip here, I'm guessing, is probably an op-amp of some kind. And finally, the big chip is obviously going to be doing all of the work, and I think based on its size and pin mapping, it's probably something like the ADC 0820 analog to digital converter, as its pinout mostly matches up. So let's have a look at the schematics. And yes, that took quite a while to figure out. A lot of care has actually gone into the design of the PCB, by keeping the ground for the analog side separate from the digital side. A technique probably designed to reduce some of the noise. Quite a nice little touch. I thought I'd found a clue as to why it didn't work. When it arrived, it had this little jumper connecting these two pins together. Now I assume if you have the actual parallel port printer pass-through module, then you have to remove this. I wondered if it was placed in the wrong position. This jumper will connect pin 13, chip select on the analog to digital converter, to ground. But according to the datasheet, that actually activates the chip. So there goes that theory. Given the thought that's gone into this design, I would love to know actually what the quality's like. But never mind, let's move on to the Techno Sound Turbo. It's a fairly simple design, and those of you that saw my previous video building that sound sampler from CU Amiga might think you recognise the chip on the left. That chip is the ZN449E. The CU Amiga one used the ZN448E. These are all part of the same family of chips, which includes the ZN447E. The difference between each of these is their quality, the ZN447E being the most accurate. Aside from that, they're pin compatible with each other. Given the weird results I got with this, I wonder if I should try swapping out that chip with one of the ZN448E chips that I've got. The other chip, yet again, is the same analog switch we've seen in the last few samplers, a very common part. Moving on to the schematics, and we're starting to see a lot of overlap with the audio switch logic at the top. Then below that we have a circuit to make the analog to digital chip work. Most of that is very similar to what you'd find in the datasheet. Like other stereo samplers, this one uses the paper out and select lines to select the left and right channels, or mono by mixing them together. And as I said before, by alternating between left and right, you can record in stereo. Now, I had a thought at this point, because this started to look a little bit familiar. So I went back to the CU Amiga mags from my previous video and pulled up the schematic for their stereo sound sampler. Looks very different, doesn't it? It even uses a totally different analog switch, but if I rearrange the components to look more like this, it starts to look a bit more interesting. It's certainly easier to see what's going on. Now let me bring in the Techno Sound Turbo schematic. Now you tell me. Something strange is going on here, they look almost the same. Some of you will notice that's a different part number for the analog switches. Well, it turns out to be exactly pin compatible, so I suspect it's the same part just made by a different manufacturer. They do use the slightly better analog to digital converter chip, and they've changed a few component values, most of them by only small amounts. Some, however, are rather strange choices. Finally, they switched the left and right sound channel inputs around, which, given the comments they left in the magazine that you can see right now, it does make me somewhat suspicious of this sampler design. Now, I'm not one to throw accusations around, and whilst you can't download a car, apparently you can copy a sound sampler. Well, that was quite a lot more work than I expected it to be. The longest part was reverse engineering all those sound sampler schematics. It's quite a tedious process. Now there were many more sound samplers available for the Amiga, and even some 16-bit ones too. If you had a sound sampler back in the day, then please share your experiences in the comments below. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Amiga samplers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.